Okay, let's take a peek at homework number 5, question number 8. It's asking us to find the points on the graph of f where the tangent line is horizontal. And they give us f of x, that's x cubed minus 15x squared. So how do we find, first of all, how do we find points on the tangent line? Well, we have the derivative. That's how we do that. We've talked about that in lab a few times, that if they ask you for the derivative, if they ask you for the tangent line at a point, if they ask you for f prime, if they ask you for instantaneous rate of change, those are all the same thing. We need to find the derivative. So in this case, we want to know where the tangent line is horizontal, so we're going to first need to find the derivative of f of x, and that's going to be f prime of x. We're going to use the power rule for both of these, so we're going to bring down that 3 and lower the exponent by 1. So that gives us 3x squared. Here we're going to bring down the 2. That means we need to multiply that by the negative 15. That's going to give us negative 30. Lower the power on the exponent. That's going to be x to the first. I don't even have to write that. So we've got 3 squared minus 30x. But that doesn't tell us where the line is horizontal. We want the tangent line where it's absolutely horizontal. And what does that mean? Well, if I have a function on my xy axes and it's doing this, it's got a positive slope, right? It's going to be a positive number. That might be a positive 1. I don't know. I didn't draw it perfectly. If we have a line that's doing this, it's got a negative slope, so that might be negative 1. But what if it's horizontal? So here's my line on my axes, and it's completely horizontal. That means that the slope equals 0. The slope here, it's not rising, it's not falling, it's staying exactly the same. No matter what the value of x is, it's always going to be 0. So what we need to do is find where the tangent line is 0, and that means we're going to have to set our derivative that we found here, this 3x squared minus 30x. We need to set that equal to 0. So set f prime of x equal to 0. And then we're going to solve. We'll solve for x, and we should get 2 values because we've got 2 powers of x here. So we will do 3x squared minus 30x equals 0. And when we solve that, I think the easiest way to do that is going to be to factor out an x. So I'm going to take one of the x's out. That's going to leave me with 3x minus 30 equals 0. Oops, so x times 3x minus 30 equals 0. All I did was factor out an x from up here. So now I know, because I've got 2 terms here, I've got this x and I've got this 3x minus 30, and if I multiply them together it equals 0. So that means either x equals 0 or 3x minus 30 equals 0. So we can say x equals 0 or x equals 3x minus 30. Oops. Scratch that. 3x minus 30 equals 0. And if you solve that, bring the 30 over and divide by 3, you're going to wind up with x equals 10. So you do just a little bit of algebra there, and you will find out that x equals 10. So what we have right now, even though it doesn't look like a whole lot, it doesn't look like what we need for our answer, it is absolutely what we need to find our answer. We have the x coordinates for both of those points on our original graph. So let's grab another sheet here. I'm going to write down our original function, because that's what we need to use now. Do not go back to your derivative, because all you're going to do is get a 0. Go back to your original function, which in my case was x cubed minus 15x squared. And we had the choices x equals 0 and x equals 10. So what we're going to do is just plug this back into the function, because something that you might not think about, because we see f of x so often, f of x is the same thing as y, and what we want is our y coordinate, right? So for the first one, we're going to do y equals f of 0, which equals 0 cubed minus 15 times 0 squared, which just so happens to be 0. Okay, that one was pretty simple. So now let's try y equals f of 10. So that's going to be y equals 10 cubed minus 15 times 10 squared. Well, that's 1,000 minus 15 times 100, which is 1,000 minus 1,500, which is negative 500. So now I know that when x equals 0, what that told me, that is when x equals, oops, for my xy coordinates, when x equals 0, y equals 0, and the xy for the second blank is going to be when x equals, whoa, you can't see what I'm writing, can you? When x equals 10, y equals negative 500. So let's go over those steps really quickly one more time just to make sure you remember. We're going to start by finding the derivative of the function that they give us. Then we're going to set that equal to 0, do a little bit of factoring, and once we do that, we can figure out our two x values that we need to find the points that we're looking for. Once you have those x values, in this case, x equals 0, x equals 10, plug those back into the original function, not the derivative, the original function. So plug the 0 into the original function, and that's going to give you, well, you knew x was 0 because that's what you plugged in for x, and when you solved it, you found out y equals 0. Now we're going to do the 10. So y equals f of 10. You solve that, you get negative 500. So when your x equals 10, your y equals negative 500. And if you've got any more questions, shoot me an email. Otherwise, be looking for more videos. They are most definitely coming.